ought to know. Well, now you ought to know by now. You ought to know. Well, now you ought to know by now.
Siberian Husky.
All right, live stream main. It's still playing the music. Oh, because that's going on. I always do the same thing. All right, live stream main.
I very much appreciate you taking the time to talk with me about this. I really appreciate it.
Oh, Moshe, like you've been a great friend. I mean, God, we met in 2007.
Crazy, it's almost 20 years.
I know. It's awesome. I knew, because before I reached out to you, I started reading, what did you call it? The 4 books of, what was that initial book series that you wrote and you had online? The 4 books of Moses.
The last 4 books of Moses? Yeah,
the last 4. Yeah. So, yeah, man, I was getting deep into some alchemical gravy with a bunch of things being down in Costa Rica and like all the Schauberger stuff. And then, coming across the Joe cell, that Joe cell, my original Joe cell was gifted to me by a guy who hated me. And then I'm looking up Joe cells online at, Lauren's parents' house. And then I find your stuff, and then I'm just like in their den every night reading the last 4 books of Moses. And I was just blown away. Like I had to reach out to you.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember that. Those are good times on the road with Lauren and
Melissa.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
awesome time.
I was actually just down in Costa Rica 2 weeks ago. I just finished all my business there. So you saw the beginning of it, like, because we moved down there in November of 2006. You and I met face to face in December of 2007, or it was either December 2007 or January of 2008. I forget which one it was. And then, yeah, man, like that was like literally the first year that I was in Costa.
That's cool. That's cool. So, and then you wrapped up all your business there?
Yeah, it's all done. Yeah,
Good for you.
We dissolved the corporation.
You didn't sell your business?
No, because of if there's all these new crazy like tax laws down there.
Oh, yeah.
So when I looked into like the capital gains tax on the corporation, and my corporation, like the way I built my corporation down there was I essentially, hired every single guy in my crew was their own subcontractor.
Yeah.
And so I had individual deals with each one of them, and they kind of worked under my jefe, like my number one. And they all went with him, after we were done doing all of our work. In the last 2 years, they've been doing their own thing with him. And I went ahead and parlayed them off to another contractor that I knew. And they've been doing great. They've had a happy thing. And in Costa Rica, too, they have like these crazy laws around when somebody ends their work status with you. There's like, you have to pay them like 1/10 of what you've paid them their entire time with them.
That's weird.
Yeah. So they have all these like ways of doing severance and like things like that. So I was paying my guys in cash because most of our builds were under the table. and
Yeah.
I was paying them cash bonuses. So this last week I was there, I gave them their last cash bonus and like, divvied up the tools. I just said, okay, we went through all the company's assets and we're like, okay, you get this, you get this, you get this, you get
Oh, that's
this.
sweet. That's part
Yeah.
of their severance kind of thing.
Yeah. Yes.
Nice,
So,
nice.
so it feels good. Well, Moshe, I wanted to have you on to continue this conversation about Israel. We did a live stream after you spoke on Alec Zeck's The Way Forward,
Yeah.
probably close to about 8 months ago or so. And you were very poignant in your description of what you saw, the what the problem was, like the big, I mean, I'll let
Yeah.
you use the correct phrasing, but essentially, how you saw I guess the Israeli identity, or maybe even the Jewish identity, as this egregore that's almost careening into disaster. That's like kind of like the like in the current milieu of the way things are being engineered. At least that seems to be something that's really coming to the forefront. And I really appreciated your eloquence and your how delicate you were with actually describing how you saw it. And I wanted this conversation for you to go into this latest, creation that you have, this for what would you call this, a docu-series? Like, I don't even know how to phrase.
Yeah, it's a cinematic series
Right.
depicting well, basically addressing the issues in the Middle East and some ongoing issues around Israel,
Mm-hmm.
bridge the gap between peoples, between Jewish people, Muslim people, between basically like biblically between Isaac and Ishmael,
Mm-hmm.
between Jacob and Esau, but also between Jews and Christians. There's a lot of really good material there that I think could be of a lot of benefit to those who are, full on Christians and then just people identify as being Christian, but they're more, let's say, spiritual. I don't know. I don't love that term, but you know what I mean. Like,
Right.
so yeah. So Topher, since we've spoken, in the last little while, I'd say the last year or so, things have gotten even more clear for me. And that's when I started to feel compelled to create this series in video form, because there's dialogue and then there's also the ability to depict certain images, and that's also kind of very inspiring, or it's also just enhances the imagery, and the it also enhances the text, the message.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you and I were chatting a little bit about the songs that I put on there. Episode 3 and episode 4, I put two of my songs on there because song poetry can also bring an added dimension, which can be a little bit lost or hard to bring across in the words themselves. So I really am, I'm kind of trying to approach from multiple angles to get some of these very, very sensitive, very complex issues, like what's happening in the Middle East, what's happening amongst Jews in the world, and with like the relationship with Muslims and Christians. There's a lot of sensitivity there. It is certainly the realm where Ahriman is rubbing his dirty little palms together, like waiting
Mm-hmm.
for a division and animosity to spark flames between peoples. So my hope, like, really, the what's central in the whole video series is the importance of the Christ.
Right.
And really, I think the Christ is central to all creation. It's central to the purpose of creation. It's central at the moment of the incarnation of Christ in Jesus of Nazareth, and it's central now for humanity, for us as plebes, human beings, to embody that, to activate the Christ within us. It's totally central. So I deal with that, and that's a very squishy topic amongst Jews too. Like, it's very hard to talk about Christ, to talk about Jesus. There's so much, there's so many, there's a lot of pain around it. There's a lot of blame because a lot of Jews were killed in the name of Christ. There's a lot of false teachings that Jews embody that are passed on through Talmud, the oral tradition, and there's just a whole bunch of stuff in that. So I have become clearer, much clearer recently. Certain things slotted into place. I have a lot to thank. I have Rudolf Steiner to thank for a lot of that clarity that also connected with what I learned years ago. I mean, we're going on 20, 25 years now with the teachings through The Only Planet of Choice, which is one of my big books that's inspired me. So,
Yes.
and those two corroborate beautifully together. The passages of The Only Planet of Choice and Rudolf Steiner's teachings through his lectures are very similar.
Right.
And that's why I use them to quote a lot during the series, because they really bring the message home, which I think is a vital importance.
So speaking the only planet of choice, that's a big question for me. Like in listening to your 4-part series, ever since the flat Earth has come in, I've kind of poo-pooed in my mind the whole notion of planets and space travel, like the whole Gene Roddenberry, like
Right.
Star Trek thing. Like for me,
Right.
like I literally look at it like a cartoon. Like my family, we love watching Star Trek, but we explain to my daughter like, "Oh, okay, this is all imagination. This is fiction."
Right.
So
Right.
how do you actually, because you have derived so much benefit from that book? One,
Yeah.
why don't you describe what the only planet of choice is, and then put it within the framework of how I would think you and I are both realm earthers. Is that correct? Like we believe we're in a created space, in that like the way science has described space like out there is fictitious. In your mind,
Right.
how do you square that circle?
Okay, so great question. So first of all, I don't like the cover on The Only Planet of Choice. It's slow. It shows the globe Earth, like the blue marble, or whatever they call it. I don't think that in the book it's overtly stated that we live on a globe Earth. I don't think that they go into that science at all in The Only Planet of Choice. From what I understand in The Only Planet of Choice is that there have been some human beings through the years who have had the gift to be pure channels. And the book itself quotes a few other examples of Nostradamus, Edgar Cayce, and also Phyllis Schlemmer, who was the channel, the transceiver. She didn't like the term channel. She used the word transceiver. Basically, she would go into stillness, and then the nine, they call themselves the Council of Nine, or the Elohim. And in the Gnostic tradition, they are eons.
Yes.
They are eons. They're emanations, principles that emanate from the unity of God, the pleroma.
Right.
And so I've always resonated with that as true, and because the teachings in that book are really mind blowing. Now they talk about different civilizations, and what I've come to understand about civilizations is that can be interchangeable with worlds, as in like Kabbalistic worlds, or dimensional realities. It's not necessarily like you get on this spacecraft here and you fly
Right.
5 light years that way and you're going to get into that other dimensional reality. They're vibrational frequencies. They're different states of reality, and I think they coincide quite well with the 4 worlds of Kabbalah, and also like what the worlds that Sri Yukteswar describes to Paramahansa Yogananda when they reunite in the hotel after Sri Yukteswar passes on. He resurrects his body in the astral, and then he describes these different worlds. And again, what I've learned from Kabbalah, and I'm like learning from these Kriya Yoga masters, it totally coincides. I'm like, yes. So that's when you get these different, totally disparate cosmologies or different walks of life saying the same thing, it sort of helps, not always, but it can help, edify certain pieces of information. So that's my view on The Only Planet of Choice. I think the like Phyllis Schlemmer over 2 decades had different guests, and they would come. She would go into her state, and they would ask her questions.
Mm-hmm.
And Gene Roddenberry was there amongst the first people, and Deep Space Nine, the
Mm-hmm.
Council of Nine from deep space is where they come. That is that's what inspired Gene Roddenberry, and there were other guests that spoke to the Nine through Phyllis and
Right.
asked their questions and stuff. And the topic of Israel is a big one in that. They put a lot of time and energy into discussing Israel, the problems and the importance of Israel as well, the importance of the concentration of the Hebrew genetics in that nation.
Was that because the woman who was channeling, what was her name? Schlemmer was her last name?
Yeah, Phyllis Schlemmer. Yeah, she
Phyllis
was half
Schlemmer.
Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
She was half Jewish.
The mother side?
Very good question. I believe it was her father's side.
Oh, doesn't even count.
No, exactly. So she's disqualified. But if you want to hear something quite interesting, it's actually a very interesting piece of information. And I don't think it's very flattering for the Lubavitch people just from this angle. The Lubavitch sect, the Rabbi Schneerson, the Rebbe, who was the leader of the sect. They believed that he was the Messiah.
Right.
And he was an incredible person. Okay, and I'm not saying this to diminish who I think he was and the Lubavitch people, because I have a lot of love for them. But what was interesting is that they accepted Phyllis Schlemmer's teachings, what came through her, because she had had a hysterectomy, which made her more of a pure kind of channel in their kind of logic, and not like whatever they would think towards what like if a woman did that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not proud to say that. I just think it's highly interesting because the Rebbe read that book, and he found that he gleaned some information from it, which is I think it's pretty impressive. Because I mean, the Rebbe did stuff like he would be up all night, like going like this, praying, and he had a book of the names of angels,
Mm-hmm.
like thousands of them that his ancestors had written in. There were thousands of them, and he would write after his meditations, he was communicating. He would write new names of angels,
Mm-hmm.
and they were new. Like there was thousands. I don't know. I couldn't memorize thousands of names. So he was a remarkable person. Anyway, I just wanted to. I think that's an interesting part of the lore around the only planet of choice.
Right.
That I'd like to share. Yeah.
Now, I years ago, like when we first met, I was really big into the Course in Miracles, and then it turned out that the Course in Miracles was actually written by a couple of people in the CIA. And if I remember, this is I'm really jogging my memory now with this. Now, even if something is like, say, COINTELPRO, or it is some aspect of like deceit, usually they have to use a lot of truth to get the seed of deceit to be planted within you.
Yeah.
They just can't say all lie. So I'm not one of these people that's like, oh, it's propaganda, so it's all garbage. Like, I know most of the time I've been naive in this world, or I've been fooled. It's because I was like, taking the full bite of what was being served. I wasn't
without discernment.
Exactly.
Without discernment. Yeah.
Yeah, and you were one of the people that really helped me with this. Like in 2008, you were like, yeah, you really got to like, you got to pay attention, bro. And so I started to listen to that, and one of the things that I started to really see in my own self with channeling, because I stopped channeling in 2007, was that there were a lot of things that were coming through that weren't true. Because the beings that I was actually speaking to were liars. It wasn't that I was like deciphering it wrong or whatever, but at least in the Christian tradition, they're very big in saying like, like the majority of those things that are out there that are speaking, like you have to have like some sort of discernment mechanism that allows you to like actually cut through the dross. You know? And so do you know if like you were talking about this Rebbe and Phyllis Schlemmer, did they have a mechanism to kind of like actually filter out, did they have a filter that you knew of? That's probably the best question I could ask.
It's a very good question. So, like, whether Phyllis Schlemmer had it and the Rebbe had it is two completely different topics. I have no idea about the Rebbe. I don't know how they would discern.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of Phyllis Schlemmer, I've been reading that book now. I want to say for probably about 25 years, and it's very like it's very like what do you call it? Dog-eared, and it's like very worn. I've read it probably a dozen times.
Yes.
And I've wrestled with some of the teachings there.
Mm-hmm.
And I question whether it was pure. I've gone in and out of questioning whether it was pure. I don't know exactly what the process was with Phyllis, but what I understand is that when she would connect with them, this being named Tom would come through. Tom, the Hebrew innocence, and he was the spokesperson for the Council of Nine, and he would consult with his Eon brethren, if that makes sense,
mm-hmm.
and then they would come up with an answer from the different civilizations that are apparently all in conjunction with, in harmony with the submission side to God's will.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe it's pure. I've wrestled with it a lot. I hadn't gone to it for a while, and recently I felt compelled to start reading passages again and making connections between Steiner's teachings.
Beautiful. Now let's now that we have a few people that have filtered in now, I would like to actually formally introduce you.
Oh, wow. Sure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, because it's all about credibility, right? So and I don't assume that everybody that's watching this or is going to watch this would have watched our previous episodes together. But
right.
Everybody that's in, welcome to Coffee Talk with my favorite naturopath, Dr. Moshe Daniel. Moshe, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself? Because to me, you are like the perfect Renaissance man. You're an entrepreneur. You're a naturopathic doctor. You're an alchemist. Like you were saying earlier, before you're aware of Steiner's work. You're aware of Kabbalah. Like out of the people that I have in my consciousness, like you are pretty much the most well-rounded person that I know, with picking and choosing and like, this whole vast array of knowledge that's out there. You've been an excellent curator in pulling that all together. So why don't you tell people a little bit about how you got here?
Thanks, man. I think you just did a great job introducing me. I think that's wonderful. What's interesting about naturopathic medicine is we're often criticized. Naturopathic doctors are often criticized for being jacks of all trades, right? Being a jack of all trades.
Like that's a bad thing.
Well, it's if you compare to the specialization, like if somebody just specializes in one of those modalities, they do have the potential to, I think, to become expert in that one modality. Whereas when you spread out and you learn like acupuncture and homeopathy and nutrition and botanical medicine and massage and counseling, like we learn all these modalities, then you run the risk of being diluted. Now, I chose to just focus, and when I became a naturopathic doctor, I chose to focus on homeopathy and the holistic counseling, which is something that I've developed based on Barry Neil Kaufman's teachings of the Optava dialogue. So I basically learned that from him, and then I brought it over the last 25 years of practice to where it is now.
Nice.
And I think, I've told this before, but in case somebody's new and doesn't know, like, one of the things that brought me to healing was my own struggle with health my entire life, basically. From being a little kid and having multiple pneumonia attacks and strep throat and ear infections to bad mono that really rocked my world. And then I had myasthenia gravis that I was diagnosed with 1995. Wow, 30 years ago. I can't even believe I'm saying that. 30 years ago, I was diagnosed with a rare, incurable, progressive, all that's in quotations because that's according to conventional medicine. incurable disease according to them, but I've done very well with the process that I use for healing, which is homeopathy, and in getting to the root cause of illness in our false belief systems. And that's really taught me how much the body is a reflection of the mind.
Right.
So this, like, matter does follow spirit. Like the spirit that's in mind is the determiner of earthly reality, and the earth reflects that basically in the human being. I don't know if I'm making that assertion across all of matter, although that's the case, that the mind does hold that matter, because mind is precedes matter and is the blueprint of matter, basically.
I absolutely concur with that, and I have to speak directly for those of you out there. Moshe's worked on me. We've probably done, I'd say, 4 V's dialogues in full. When I was in like bent up, like literally, and getting to the lie, right? Unearthing the lie that's there, because this is so pertinent to your 4-part series, is because you're going to say it more eloquently than I will in a second. I'm just shooting from the hip here. But essentially, what you've shown me is that all illness comes from the belief in something that's untrue.
That's right. From false perception and attachment to that false perception. I think there might be some small, some few exceptions to that rule, like heavy metal poisoning. But one can still find certain dispositions in that person because of their mindset that disposes them to get poison in the first place in the way that they did, and not avoid it or not notice or whatever. But generally speaking, yes, the false beliefs are the cause of the vast majority of our chronic illness. And it's also chronic in contrast to acute, because acute could be a little bit different as well, although the mind is involved as well with acute. Yeah.
Right. So with that, like in my own healing process that you've helped me with, and I've had this through other avenues also, you're mirroring other, greats in my mind with this. Just your process, by the way, with your V's dialogue is just like exceptional. So have you done a forensic sweep of your own belief system before actually going into like the world, into the big projection of the great beyond, of like, what's causing this from a field perspective? Like what has been your process in this?
That's a great question. I love this angle of like exploration around the series. It's great. So I've worked on my own beliefs. I continue to work on my own beliefs. It's a work in progress. We can encounter belief and go, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I believe that. I don't want to believe that anymore. Goodbye. And then only to find it come back 5-10 years later, and it's working its little, annoying process in the subconscious again. And then we discover it again. So it is a work in progress. I have encountered a lot of my false beliefs. I've encountered quite a few that were specifically born in Torah. And those were quite interesting. So as you know, my now ex-wife and I are separated for the past 3.5 years. And beautiful, amicable, go with God, love, hearts full of love, letting each other go. But nevertheless, we broke up, and I was alone for the first time in like 15 years.
Wow.
And I felt very uncomfortable with that state. And then I was meditating in my pyramid, and it just hit me like a bolt of lightning. The passage from the Torah where it says it's not good for the man to be alone. It's not good for the man to be alone, basically. Are you hearing that little beepy beepy? Let me
Yeah, I
just.
think somebody was calling you on your side.
I don't even know where that's coming from. Okay, sorry about that. We're back.
We're
Go go
back.
go. We're back. Um, so I realized that because I was shown that the belief was encoded in Torah. So there are quite a few belief systems that one who has studied Torah, who has taken it to be the will of God, the pure will of God, which it was for a time. I do believe it was for a time, and we could get into that because I really go
Yes.
into that series. But nevertheless, it can be quite an influence on a person's psyche.
Hmm.
So that was an example of a belief that I had through Torah. And through my life, I have had this strange relationship to the religious Jews, where I myself wasn't religious. I was raised in an Orthodox house. I was bar mitzvahed. We would do all the festivals and we'd have Shabbat dinner, but I wasn't as religious, let's say, as my grandfather was, my father's father,
Hmm.
who wore like a kippah and he wore tzitzis and he was Shomer Shabbos. He didn't drive or work on Shabbos and he was like kosher as well.
Hmm.
All like basically a full, not extremely orthodox as you could get like in like the Haredim, like the when like dark hats and like that whole
Hmm.
thing, but he was orthodox. And all my life I've had a keen sense of the collective of the Jewish people. I could feel that inside of me.
Right.
So that's helped me do my work because I know how it feels. I know the mentality, I know that the feeling, I know the relationship with the world. And it's funny because I myself, this has been very challenging for me. I was raised much more secular, playing hockey in Quebec, tabarnak,
Hmm.
cross-checking guys and like
Yeah.
um and I was raised outside of a religious fold, yet I still felt the religious fold within me all my life.
Hmm.
And I believe that this is bearing fruit now and this time. And what I've created with the 4-part series, that consciousness living inside of me, and as I've understood it intimately and felt the pain of that, um, has bore fruit, if I might say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here I have up on the screen. You probably can't see it. I have your 4-part series up. The
Yeah.
first
Thank you.
the first part is heal the Torah and the war. The second,
That's the third part.
oh, why is this? This isn't in order then.
Yeah, look at it should say part one. Can you share your screen so I could have a look see?
I
And I
can't
could
I can't share it through OBS. It flips it out.
Okay, no
So
problem. So yeah,
the
basically
title for the first one is why. Which one is it? Is it why Israel was chosen?
yeah, why Israel was chosen. Part one is called The Delayed Promise. That's the title, The Delayed Promise.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, part two is the primary problem, where I get into the problem that I perceive of like on the side of Israel.
Okay.
Part three is heal the Torah, heal the world, because I look at how the Torah is considered to be the blueprint of creation, and it
Hmm.
was not made like the Zohar,
Yes.
the definitive book on Kabbalah by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. I basically quote him that states that the Holy One, blessed be He, created the world where not a single thing was created perfectly. In other words, it was created with problems in it, with tears and issues, and that
Hmm.
we have to heal the world. We have to heal the world by understanding what those problems are and correcting them in the source. So part three, I look at the issues between Abraham and Sarah. Sarah couldn't conceive, so she told Abraham to take Hagar, her handmaiden, and she was an Egyptian
Hmm.
woman, and she had Abraham's firstborn, Ishmael. And then later, she had this miracle child at the age of 90, as the story goes. And in that moment, when she has Isaac, there's a lot of laughter around Isaac. She basically laughs. Abraham laughs when God tells him that he's going to have a baby. They're going to
Hmm.
have a baby. He laughs with joy. Sarah laughs a little bit like, yeah, right. I'm like 90, dude. Then she gets pregnant and then she laughs from joy. So then she names her son Yitzchak, which means he will laugh. Then it says in the Torah that she heard Ishmael laughing, metzachek. It's the same Hebrew verb, but it's been translated as he was mocking instead of laughing. And the translation is up for debate.
Hmm.
It could be laughing, it could be mocking, it could be joyously laughing, it could be whatever. I take it to be laughing. Exactly what Sarah says. She says, "Let all who see the miracle of this birth laugh with me." Ishmael laughs, and he and Hagar get sent out of the tent of Abraham. And that is a rift between peoples
Hmm.
that has never been healed. So that's an example of a rift in the Torah that needs to be healed.
Definitely, definitely.
That's
Well,
what part
that
three
that
deals
I
with.
mean, that's a massive thing because aren't Ishmael's descendants the Muslim?
Muslim Muslim people, like basically Arab Muslims, essentially yes, essentially yes, and so that's a huge thing. And I think that I want to say that we need to ask for forgiveness for what was done. And even though basically Abraham, it says in the Torah that Abraham was troubled, but God said, "Don't worry, uh, your bloodline has to inherit through Isaac,
Hmm.
not through Ishmael." So it was condoned by God, and I think that because of that, religious Jews interpret that as being there. Okay, no problem then, right? Because God condoned it. Yahweh condoned it. But what I explain in the series is that Yahweh is the force on planet Earth that helped the Jewish people crystallize their sense of individual separate self.
Hmm.
It carved out the individual sense of self because the peoples on planet Earth, the Persians, the Indians, the Egyptians, they all had a much stronger collective reality, a group consciousness where they didn't know themselves as separate as much and they could easily connect with the divine. They could
Bro,
easily,
so
yeah.
so I don't know if you know about this show that's out on Apple TV right now. It's called Pluribus. And the whole notion of the show is that there's this alien transmission that goes ahead and changes a bunch of RNA sequencing in a bunch of humans. And before you know it, within like 9 months, there's the number nine again, the entire world except 11 people are all the same consciousness. And
Oh,
what's
wow.
what's cool about the show is that the alien humans now, these humans, they still have the memory of who they were, but now they have a collective thing that they're working towards. And they
Yeah.
work in harmony. They're like a fine concert. And that's what I love about the show is it's showing because usually like alien invasion stuff or like anything that's showing magic where you essentially zombify everybody and you put them in the collective consciousness, there's chaos, right? They show that normally in fiction, they show that as being something chaotic. In Pluribus, it's kind of like what you're speaking about. You'd have all these quote unquote individual people, but they had a mono purpose, and they
Yeah.
and and they didn't have a sense of individuality because you just said earlier with what the third part of your series is saying is like we're here to fix mistakes. I think in Greek writing that's like one of the biggest tenets in philosophy is to be human is to error.
Yeah, to err is to human. Yeah. To err is human. To err is human. I think that's the quote. So basically part one establishes this idea that the
Mm-hmm.
one, that which is, was, and will always be creator, oneness consciousness, had a dilemma in the beginning because it was one and there was nothing else. And so it lacked this ability to know itself experientially. It could only know itself intellectually. It could say, wow, I'm awesome. Look, I know that I'm all that is. I know I'm all creativeness, all intelligence. But it couldn't feel that because it had no way of knowing what it felt like.
Mm-hmm.
It couldn't experience itself. So part of the plan was to create an individual self, a self that could look at that oneness and go, I am being talked to by God. God is speaking to me.
Mm-hmm.
So in that process, there's a separation in humanity with God.
Mm-hmm.
That's the danger, because through creation, by requiring the birth of this sense of individual self, so that we can then look at and look at God and then remember who we really are as God, because there is only God. There's no true separation. That's a lie. Well, not a lie. It's an illusion.
Mm-hmm.
But in the process of creating individuality as part of the evolution of the oneness, so that we could know ourselves and have that experience that God was yearning for, there is this danger that that we get stuck in the process of becoming individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened with the Jewish people. This is what I've come to understand. Rudolf Steiner has really edified for me this understanding,
Mm-hmm.
and The Only Planet of Choice as well. So when Abraham was born 5,000 years ago, in the Chaldean epoch, before that, the different peoples had tried to establish the individual self, and they hadn't succeeded. But Abraham had an ability in his intellect to create this sort of discernment, to have an intellectual brain that was different, that enabled the individual sense of self to come to be. And so the Bible acknowledges this 42 generations, and Steiner talks about this. It took 42 generations from Abraham to Jesus of Nazareth for the body to be prepared enough in individual, for the eye to be hardened enough,
Mm-hmm.
so that when Christ incarnated, the body was able to withstand the force, the power of the Christ. Because before that, the Christ couldn't be fully manifest because the individuals didn't know themselves enough. So there was no incarnation in an individual on planet Earth that could
Wasn't 42 the answer in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
I think that was 47.
Was it 47?
I don't know, man. But if it's 42, that's very interesting, because that is a book of wisdom. But this is what's important, because the Jewish people were expert at individuality,
Mm-hmm.
at carving themselves at the individual space and having this relationship with Yahweh, where they said, God is over there in this pillar of cloud,
Mm-hmm.
and the pillar of fire and smoke and clouds and lightning and all these earthly phenomena, and the receiving of the Torah.
So Moshe, it was. Sorry to interrupt. We have 42 people watching now, and it was 42.
Oh my gosh, that's cool, man. That's cool. So the Jewish people brought this gift of being tough enough to hold the vibration. And I also go into slavery was part of the prescription of life for the people to harden their individuality through suffering. The vessel was hardened and strengthened, because 400 years of slavery, it toughens the physical body, it toughens the genetic. And so that vibrational that essence could anchor the power of the Godhead into the human being, which became the Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the problem also, the very moment in time when Christ incarnated in Jesus of Nazareth, which represented the fulfillment of the Jewish role in preparing that time, because we said that Christ is central to all of creation.
Right.
That moment in time when Christ incarnated was the fulfillment of the purpose of this creation, so that God could have the experience in the self, in an individual self, and have the experience of God knowing itself.
Mm-hmm.
So, but in that very moment of the fulfillment of the purpose of the Jewish people, 42 generations, was also the moment in time when the problem began with the Jewish people, because they didn't accept the Christ fully. There was a war that went on that involves the opposition to God, which doesn't want humanity to move forward with the Jewish people and the rest of the earth embodying the Christ, because that would represent the fulfillment of creation. And those energies which try to hold back humanity's evolution really started to get a hold of the people, not all Jewish people, but of the people in general, to hold them back from accepting the Christ.
Right.
So we had a handful that did accept the Christ and kind of evolved to become Christian. And then we had the majority or the authority that did not accept the Christ. You know, the
Right.
Sanhedrin, all that stuff, the Pharisees and the Sadducees and all that stuff.
Yeah, because Jesus was quite explicit with those people, like, you are of your father, the devil. Like, he was like,
Right.
speaking to the Sanhedrin in the temple, like, he was not having this, this, the way that they were using the law to separate people from God instead of bring them to God.
Right.
The Mosaic law. And I know I'm going to get this question after this is being viewed for a while, because I have just recently come across a lot of people that have never met a Jewish person, at least knowingly. So for them, Jews are like aliens. I've been around I've been around Jews my entire life, and I've been around every type of Jew. I've been around, people like you. I've been around South Florida Jews. I've been around Israeli Jews, in all my travels abroad.
And in Costa Rica, living with you in Costa Rica.
Yeah, like, I lived in a community that was like a third Jewish, like Israeli Jews down there in Costa Rica. They've pretty much taken over down there. And it was very interesting because I've sat with them in ceremony spaces that were not Jewish at all. I've gone to what are the dinners called that you guys have? Shabbat?
Yeah, Shabbat dinner. Sure.
I've done Shabbat, and I love them, and
Sure.
I gotta say, the majority of the Israeli men that I knew that were Jewish, they were atheists. And so I was like, if you're atheist, what are you identifying with that's Jewish? And so the question I've gotten from non-Jews is, what makes someone Jewish? Because you got a whole sect of people that are going like, oh, it's the Hebrew genetics that makes one Jewish, and that goes through the line of the mother. And then you have a whole other bunch of people that are saying, oh, it's just, a tradition that's been passed down, and if such and such, because I would say over half the Jews that I've known, that where we've spoken about it, like where it's actually been a discussion, they don't claim to have any genetic heritage to the quote unquote Hebrews of the Old Testament, right, or the Torah.
Right. There's a whole thing going on now. Like, I find that I'm sorry, did you finish your thought there?
Well, I just want to know, like, so, because when we're saying, like, there's, like, you use the word Israel in your in your 4-part series. Israel denotes a geographical location, but it's populated by the Jewish people, per se. And I just know I'm going to receive questions of people saying, well, let's define what a Jewish person actually is.
It's a very good topic because I mean I've only recently launched my video and I've already gotten like the most vehement, vitriolic, like salivating at the mouth hatred against Jews as a response. Like the person, like the people, they don't even want to consider what I'm trying to say. Just a lot of like knee-jerk reactions, presuppositions, and a lot of just hatred that's there. And there's a tremendous amount of that hatred towards Jews and towards Israel on the planet right now. This is one of the reasons that I felt compelled to make this, to bring some sort of healing to that, to bring understanding to both sides. Because Rudolf Steiner said that in this age, right now, Ahriman would be manifesting his incarnation.
Right.
Christ came as the Christ incarnation 2,000 years ago. 1,000 years before that, it was the Luciferic incarnation of the Luciferic force. And now, right in this very moment that we're live, is the Ahrimanic force. And the Ahrimanic force seeks to separate people into their own little individualities, to keep people in their own peoplehood, belief systems,
right,
and to create animosity between people.
Right.
So one of the things that I would like to do is I would like to contribute to some sort of understanding of how prevalent the Ahrimanic force is and how easy it is, especially in this topic with the war going on with the Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank and all the tensions that are there. There's a huge importance to bring peace into Israel, because what I understand, what the Only Planet of Choice really emphasizes a number of times in the book, is that there's like a loudspeaker in the Jewish people. There's a concentration of the Hebrew genetics. Okay, so I'll address all your questions about what makes a Jew. There's different definitions, okay? Right. But the Hebrew genetics, which was passed on through the blood, which for a large part hasn't been diluted, or if it has, it's still present enough to create a ripple effects through the world to broadcast like a loudspeaker the energies that are occurring in Israel to the rest of the world. So the rest of the world feels the tension that's happening now between the sons of Abraham. And that's a problem, because that continues to create division. And there's offshoots of that between Hispanic people and white people, or blacks and Hispanics, or blacks and whites, or the police and blacks, or men and women, or just division in general. Like, it's the time of it's so important for us to focus on what is central, and that is the Christ. And the Christ doesn't see division. It sees same. In essence, regardless of race, gender, age, religion, there's a oneness in humanity, because God is one. There's only one God, and it's the same for all people. It is. So it's so important for Jews to wake up to and for all people to wake up. But because of the concentration of the Hebrew genetics, there's a very strong energy in the people.
Right.
And that augments. Like, you can create your reality with your mind. I can create reality with my mind. But when you get a strong genetic together that's all thinking the same thing, in this case, i.e. the world is against us and we must defend ourselves at all costs. That's basically the definition of the primary problem.
Right.
Then that ripples, that separation, that fear ripples, and it feeds the forces of separation. It feeds the forces of fear. And that's very unfortunate. This is how the plan was turned around. The plan to bring the Christ to all people was turned around.
Do you mind if I interject a couple things from my personal experience?
I want to hear you. I just want to say that I haven't answered the other parts of the Jewish thing, so I'll get to that after you.
Oh, go ahead. I don't want to throw you off your flow.
Well, Well, I mean, the other stuff is a little bit more like the definition of what it means to be a Jew. First of all, I believe that there's a tremendous amount of false propaganda against the Jewish people and against Israel that circulates the world today. There are truths, and I try to be as objective as I can in taking ownership or own like expressing what I think the problem is for Israel. But I do not accept all the stuff out there that's touted about Israel. One of the things, like, I don't know if you noticed this, but when I got into like fights or arguments with people that were very far left woke, they had an answer for everything.
Yes.
And I think that is the case as well, that there's some people that hate Jews so much. It's a sickness. It's like Trump deranged syndrome. You've seen people with Trump derangement syndrome. It's just like a sickness. Well, they have Israel derangement syndrome. They have a mind virus that it enrages them. It fills them with hatred. Ezra Pound, the poet, the famous poet Ezra Pound, had that same hatred. It's just I've seen people literally go psychotic and start babbling about Jews. It's a very weird phenomenon. So I do believe that this hatred could go so far that they've created an answer to everything that someone that's Jewish could say in order to have a defense against the legitimate or even the possibility that the Jewish people should exist, that the state of Israel should exist at all, that Jews should be living on the land of Israel. It's like there's an answer to everything there.
Right.
It's like if you ever had discussions with atheists.
Yeah.
They go to atheists. I have in my family, like my immediate family, I have atheists who go to conferences and they learn, like, if a God believer says this, you say this. Mm-hmm. So there's so much out there that really addresses it. There's two big things. First of all, that the Holocaust is exaggerated, that the Jews, it wasn't really a big deal. They're just making it up to create suffering so that they could manipulate the world with anti-Semitism oversensitivity. And I think there's some truth in the anti-Semitism oversensitivity, which we could talk about. That's one thing, to diminish the fact that the Jews were rounded up from throughout Europe, who already were a low population, and a vast majority of the people died. Whether there were gas chambers or not, we know that a lot of Jews died during the Second World War. There's no doubt about that in my mind. So to diminish that is like one of those arguments to try to take away any legitimacy for the existence of the state of Israel. Mm-hmm. That's number one. The second thing is that the people focus in on a lot on the blood tests, that Israel doesn't allow certain like genetic testing because they don't want to see that there's no true Hebrew Jews or something. I don't believe that. I think some people that call themselves Jewish might not have a concentrated Hebrew genetic, number one. But I think it's there enough that this is a legit thing, like Israel as a state and bringing the Jewish people together as it's prophesied is an important thing. And I think that the Jewish genetic is not exclusively kept within the Jewish people, that it has been spread far and wide too, from intermarriage, from Abraham.
You guys get busy. You Jews.
Yeah,
you guys get busy. It's,
like great horned stag.
That's a fact. Yes. Some call it what? Elk velvet? It should be elk velveteen. That's where we're going tonight.
All right. I love it. So I do believe that the like basically what the Only Planet of Choice talks about, like the importance of Israel as being central for humanity, as playing a central role, is very important, and that role hasn't been fulfilled. And while it's not fulfilled, there's tension going on, which is spreading to all of humanity. I actually do believe that when peace comes to Israel, a real peace, not just like political peace, but a real peace between the brothers of Ishmael and Israel, or Isaac and Ishmael, that we'll have peace. We'll have a peace on earth. because that will ripple to the rest of the world.
So here's a big thing. So like, you know, in knowing you and then watching this series that you created, and you're saying like the problem is for everyone, because there's Christians that don't actually accept Christ into their heart. You know, the problem worldwide, no matter what you identify with, is this way of bifurcating you from your surroundings, keeping this soul, this insular identity, and then with that insular identity actually exalting whatever victimhood, however you've been persecuted, however your family's been persecuted, whatever it is, that is like the antithetical aspect of the Christ, which is like, oh, well, we're all made in the image and likeness of our Father. Like, you know, I'm here to be of service. I'm actually here to love my neighbor more than myself. I'm here
and I am of myself no thing. I am of myself nothing.
Yeah.
Not that I need to defend my own self at all costs. Like,
right.
That's a problem. That blocks the expression of the Christ.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in no thing, like when I was going through the Four Noble Truths, oddly enough, of Buddhism, when he brings up the notion of no thing, you know, I took it as in like I am no thing, and then I was instantly hearkened to Jesus's words of, I am in this world but not of it. Like, this world, like this experience is, you know, this is very Vedanta Advaita. This experience is, you know, quote unquote real, or we could say it's happening, right? But the experience in and of itself is almost like the shadow in the cave wall in Plato's allegory of the cave. It's like, this is not actually the reality. Like, this isn't it. And
right.
we've come here to fix, you know, certain aspects of our consciousness, and then to remember that wholeness, and remember, oh, I am in this world but not of it. I am, but that I am, like, because I just absolutely adore Jesus's description when the disciples asked him, you know, can you describe God? Like, what's God like, you know? And he's like, God is the peace that passeth all understanding. Immediately the intellect is gone. If it passeth all understanding, that means you cannot use the intellect to get there. It's not an intellectual pursuit. God is the peace that passeth all understanding. So go ahead.
Yeah. Did you finish your thought? And then I'll jump in. I want you to make sure you finish that.
It's just one of these things where the tribalism that I see, and because there's so many things that are going on with this, because I've had so much experience in life where I've met, you know, quote unquote Christians that have not one iota of Christ within them. And then I've met Jews that have, like you, that have the light of Christ in them. And I've met Hindus that have the light of Christ in them. And I've met Sikhs, and all walks in manners.
The Christ is universal. It's not unique for Christians, and it's not unique for Jews. It's humanity's basically universal.
And he actually says that. Like, that's the funniest thing is, like, he literally says, like, I'm returning for all of them. Everyone. All. Not some, not a few, not the chosen.
Right.
All. All means all. So for me, I'm just like, because because people get hung up on definitions and word magic. I noticed this all the time when I was traveling abroad. People would be mad at me because I was an American. And they would project onto me all this stuff because they were like, "Oh, you're American," and I'm like, "What does that mean?"
Yeah.
You think the corporation United States of America, like I'm a miniature egregore of the foreign policy of that thing? Like when you say I'm an American, that's an idea. Like what are you saying? And it's the same thing.
What are you trying to tag onto me?
Yeah. And I'm bringing all this up because people are always looking for a scapegoat. And I find that in the current milieu of media is like the Jew is the scapegoat, big bad Israel.
Has been often, actually.
Well, so here's my question for you, because I'm of the mind that I watch this in every government, by the way. I don't just watch this. This isn't an Israeli only thing. But it's very obvious to me that there are intelligence operations within the Israeli government that is actually actively working to further demonize the Israeli populace, like the people on the ground, to the rest of the world. Like there's certain things that from a geopolitical perspective, from a legal perspective, like the way the ADL acts to me, for the most part, is like the biggest like way to get people to look at you kind of sideways. Like,
I think that's not. With the ADL, I don't know that that's deliberate. I think it comes from the primary problem. The primary problem is Israel's belief that the world is against us, and we have suffered genocide. We have suffered at the hands of all these different nations, and they're against us. They want to kill us. So we have to protect ourselves. And so the primary problem then has different ways of manifesting, but it all comes from the same problem. The ADL, because the primary problem is so self-defensive, the ADL I get so frustrated with them and with a lot of Jewish people in America that call everything anti-Semitism because it blocks proper examination of important problems that anybody should be able to criticize Israel for, and Jewish people, and any nation for that matter. But then it also acts, and I say this in the video, it acts as a crying wolf for the actual horrendous level of anti-Semitism, which is actually occurring on the planet. So if Jews are going, that's anti-Semitism, and it's not really, they're criticizing Israel for something, or they're criticizing the very strong influence that Zionist and let's say billionaire Jews have in America. They're looking at that as a problem, and you're like, oh, that's anti-Semitism. Then when anti-Semitism is actually happening, people are desensitized to that. They're like, well, screw you. Like, that's not anti-Semitism. There's no anti-Semitism. So they deny everything. So it's sort of like this split problem. And I agree. I do believe that the powers that truly are behind the manipulation of the world, I don't think it's the Jewish people.
No.
I think there might be Jews that are involved. Like they play a role as individuals, not as part of some club, but that the people that are pulling the strings and trying to orchestrate us into a new world order are throwing the Jews under the bus right now and making them look like they're responsible for all the machinations of the world. And I don't think that's true at all.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, I don't know how often you actually watch my show, but over the last 2 years, I've had a ton of authors and people that have educated me on the dispensationalist movement, which was also spawned the Zionist movement in like probably, at least a couple dozen different denominations of Christianity within the United States. And the dispensationalists shifted the whole focus of the Christian world to essentially the end times. Like they rebranded the end times in the New Testament, and they essentially from 1875 on with Darby's work, all the way through to now, the majority of the push within the Christian world is to support Israel through, Zionist, the whole notion of Zionism. It with the like, this is the sickness of it, with the goal of bringing the end times. Like, and like, to me, as somebody that, I came to Christianity. I came to Christianity.
Doesn't that just mean the return of Christ, though? Not like Revelation, fire and brimstone.
Yeah, but
like
they added all this stuff. They added like the whole thing when it came to like. So before this movement, pretty much everybody was what's known was a post-millennialist. Like they looked at that the return of Christ had already come, and that we were living in the post period of they were called post millennialists.
And I have heard you with a number of guests talking about that, by the way.
Yeah, and I've also had the detractors, but historically, like if you're just to look at the straight history and not look at people's opinions, like from 1870 on, you had this once again in English, like English as in from England, sponsored movement within the United States called dispensationalism, which shifted the timeline and said, okay, what all the stuff that you guys knew, no, they're like that 40 that timing that already happened, that didn't happen. Actually, we're in this time, we're in the break between week 41 and 42, whatever it was, and now we are waiting for the Christ to return. That was not the consensus. That was not an organic movement. It was a paid for like pre-Tavistokian British Empire thing that was put out there. And we know that the British Empire pretty much was carving up the Middle East. We've all seen Lawrence of Arabia. We've all seen what they did with the Indian subcontinent. They were the empire where the sun never set. And the whole thing was setting up a failure point. That was the whole point. Like I have Albert Pike's book right over there, Morals and Dogma. And dude, it's literally the dispensationalist handbook where they're saying, okay, this is how the game plan's going to go, X, Y, Z. And we're in the Z of it right now where it's like, okay, you have this state of Israel that was, the Balfour Declaration made it so from Lord Rothschild. By the way, my friends that are in Israel, they were showing me pictures yesterday of the town that they go to go play music. It's by Jerusalem. It's this town, and it's like it is a Rothschild town. Like the Rothschilds built it, which I thought was actually a really pretty town. So I'm like, there is this socially engineered nexus of tension. And I think, like you were saying, I don't think the Jews are at the center of it. I think the Jews are proxies, and they're being blamed.
I agree. I've actually recently, I think it's called the I don't know if it's called the Promethean Act, but there's these bunch of journalists basically that are pointing at the British influence. Even if you look into the Epstein, a lot of people think that he was a Mossad agent, but I think he was a British agent.
No, he was British. Like you look at his handler.
Thank you very much. So let me just say something about this, because this is super important. People look at the Rothschild influence, they look at the British influence. They set up the situation to create conflict.
Right.
But that doesn't take away. See, people get confused about this, or they just get so drawn into that part of the story. They don't realize that what the British were doing was hijacking something that was supposed to happen, that had to happen, that was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
That is the ingathering of Jews, basically the fulfillment of what is meant to occur on the planet. That is the coming of the Christ. Certain things have to happen amongst different peoples. Right now, we're talking about the Jewish people and like Muslims in the Middle East. So it had to happen there. So in a way, it's like what Master Oogway says in Kung Fu Panda. Often our destiny is met on the very road we take to avoid it.
Yes.
In this case, the controlling bastards could create the situation that actually brings about the redemption of the earth by trying to create division on the earth.
Mm-hmm.
You follow what I'm saying? Like, I would not dismiss, because a lot of people that have a lot of animosity towards Israel, they just say that Israel's not a real country. It's not true. It's not a true nation. It's just created. I don't mean it in that way. I mean it in this way, that the Rothschild and the Balfour Declaration, whatever, the British were involved in trying to like finagle the situation to create tension there.
Right.
That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah. And by the way, this is something that we've gotten into, defining what nation means. Nation is not a geographical boundary. So a nation might actually be within a geographical boundary, but a geographical boundary does not define a nation. Nation is an extension of family. And I have yet to meet any group of people that is more insular and more tribal than the Jews I know.
Right.
Because
it's an extension of what made them be able to carve themselves from the group dreamlike intuitive mentality where there was no sense of self, and the Christ couldn't incarnate enough into individuality. So the gift of the Jews is also the problem of the Jews now.
Right.
Because it's carved such an individuality and a tribal mentality that we have forgotten. And when I say we, I can say we all the time, or I could speak about the Jews, because I both identify as Jewish, but I'm in the yogic kind of place where I am not my identity. I am beyond that. That's my yoga, my very spiritual Judaism, right? Like you're not.
So the Dalai Lama says, I will reach enlightenment upon my deathbed. So I got that going for me. Was my Bill Murray any good? Did you notice that quote?
Oh no, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that, but that's funny. It
was from Caddyshack when he was like,
I totally missed that. I didn't realize that.
I just love that line was so perfect.
So basically, what I think here is there's a positive importance of the Jewish people and there's a negative importance. Mm-hmm. The positive is that the genetic is very strong. It's been very strengthened. So the light of Christ that is embodied there is tremendous. We want that. The negative aspect is the same thing, but turned into the negative. That because of the strength of that people, by maintaining this individuality, planet Earth receives that as a basis of consciousness that's influencing the collective of humanity, because Israel's a microcosm and a loudspeaker to the collective of humanity, so that we're still all locked into individuality and nations, and my people are better than your people, and like even within Christianity, you got all the different sects that are at war with each other. And within Islam, you have the Shiites and the Sunnis, and you have in Ashkenazi and Sephardic. This separation is at the basis of our humanity. Mm-hmm. And I know that the Christ has to be in everybody's hearts, and it will be, because it's the truth, and we're going to get there. The question is, how much loss of life will there be between now and then? And that loss of that life is not necessary. It's a shame. All loss of life is a shame. that comes because of the warring between nations and between religions and stuff like that.
Okay,
So,
Moshe, can I ask you a question that just came through the personal chat?
sure.
This is directly asking what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
This comes from YOLO. He says, I get confused about modern Jewish people. Do they truly believe there is something in the Bible that says, I wonder if he means the Torah, in the Bible that says they will return as a unit to a specific place in the future?
It is prophesied in Torah that there would be an ingathering of Jews to the land of Israel. You see, what I didn't address this, Topher, but you actually brought up a very good point. The nation of Israel is called the nation of Israel regardless of where they are per se,
Right.
because even basically Jacob is the father of the 12 tribes. After he wrestled with the angel, he got the name Israel. Now it's interesting because he wrestled with the angel of God and got the name Israel. That's not a mistake, right? Like wrestling with God. That's sort of part of the process that's going on here. But Israel, the name Israel is Jacob, who is the father of the nation, the family. It's the 12 tribes.
Mm-hmm.
So the nation of Israel is not just exclusively in Israel. It's also in, like, for example, New York State has the highest concentration of Jews in the world besides in Israel. But yes, it's believed amongst Jewish people that there has to be an ingathering of the dispersed, of the exodus and the diaspora of Jews throughout the world. There has to be a return and an ingathering.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, YOLO says thank you. He gave a thumbs up to that question. And if anybody has any questions, go ahead and put it in the chat for Dr. Moshe, because this discussion is getting into some really, really good specific parameters here. Because this is something I really like, because the notion, because I never knew where nation came from. I was always confused at my university because my university was a land grant university that allowed the nations of the Native Americans, like all the different nations, had scholarship to my university as a land grant university. And so I was talking to a bunch of Native Americans, and they were like telling me, okay, I come from the Iroquois Nation, or my family was Sioux Nation, or whatever. And I was like,
right.
okay. And as a young man, my only thing was like, the governmental, parameters for geography.
Right.
And they were the one that was teaching me that that's an extension of family, that like the notion of nation is your greater family. And I thought that was like a really cool thing. And I've seen this in the internet world, like with having a podcast, like the people that are in the chat regularly and everything, we all kind of have like our own joking and our own like little, I guess you'd say lexicon with things. We've become like a little nation in a way, because we have like this, like, there becomes like a little bit of an in-group preference, like all the things that happens when when you prefer someone over something. And that was something that I was going to bring up earlier, was I was really lucky to grow up with a ton of Jews, because it gave me a thick skin. Because the prep school I went to in middle school was mainly Jewish. And I remember, I've told you this story before, but it's worth repeating. I was like really, really hot to trot with this one girl before her bat mitzvah. I always forget, is it bat or bar mitzvah?
Bat mitzvah is for a girl, yeah.
And we got along famously. Like we were an item, as much as an item as you could be in 8th grade. And so I asked her out. I was like, hey, will you be my girlfriend? And she's like, yes, dude, like concise. She's like, Chris, I cannot date you because how I date now is how I'm going to date later in life. And I'm going to marry a Jewish man, and because you're not Jewish, I cannot date you now. And she was just like, she severed it, like cut it.
Just matter of fact, even though, well, that tribal thing, like my grandparents were very strong with that. And my parents too, like it was always, and I was very idealistic about this too. I'm going to only marry Jewish, and I ultimately didn't. But although Savea,
see, that was your first mistake. See,
right, it's confirmed. But no, the tribal quality, and this is like what guys like Nick Fuentes is focusing on, and Tucker Carlson, like who are people that are calling out the issues with Israel, and especially with Israeli and Jewish influence on stateside American, are they're not all saying what Fuentes is saying, but what Fuentes is saying, what he really emphasizes is that Jews are very tribal and very organized amongst themselves. Now, it's not like everybody's a card-carrying Jew, because there's an expression, 10 Jews, 11 opinions. Like, not everybody's on the same page. People are divided. But when it comes to, like, and Israel was divided before October 7th, 2024, or was it 2 years ago, or is it? I've lost track. Was it 2023 or 2024? Forgive me for that. I know that sounds crazy that I can't even remember how many years it is. But before that, the country was quite divided, with Netanyahu sort of like holding some power, judiciary power with the Israeli government, and people were protesting. There was a lot of protest before that. But when the war started, they were united as a pack again. So opposition. So this is what people who, let's say, hate Israel, is if you want to strengthen Israel, threaten them, because they'll just band together and be very strong and united.
But I think I don't have any way of proving this, but this is just like from my own anecdotal perspective, and it's just on one thing. Where I lived in Costa Rica, dude, the mountain that I looked at to the west that was right by the ocean was owned by all Israelis, and it happened to be the top area in all of Central America where they did paragliding. Like, it was like rated number 2 spot in the world. And Israelis, man, they're good at marketing. They get the people in and out. They had tours going, blah, 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 right? And, dude, that whole October 7th thing, the Iron Dome, I took offense to that Iron Dome thing because I build Iron Domes. And they're like, oh, these guys paraglided over and they did all this stuff. I am not naive to the fact that every government does false flag operations to, like you say, cohere their populace. Like, that's been done in the United States God knows how many times. It's just like, okay, people are starting to descend.
It's like a form of divide and conquer. It's a form. It's from the dictator's playbook. It's
exactly.
Like false flag. I don't know if they I don't know the details. I really don't know about what was planned there. I've heard the understanding of the idea, the possibility that Netanyahu ordered a stand down. Something like that had to occur, because if a rat farts along the fence,
right,
they hear it, they know, and they could be anywhere along the fence in like 7 minutes with serious firepower and gunpowder to shut it down. So the fact that there was like a 7 to 8 hour lapse is absolutely horrendous. And I have surmised, I don't know if this is true. I don't know either. So like you're saying that you just have like anecdotal, like shooting from the hip, gut instinct. I have a feeling that one of the things that's going on now with Israel is they're sick and tired of the constant threat from their neighbors. And there's been a lot of attempt at giving land back for peace. Like the Golan Heights were conquered and it was given back. The Sinai, the whole Sinai, a massive amount of beautiful land was conquered during one of the wars. They gave it back for peace with Egypt. The Gaza was inhabited by Jewish residents in 2005 before. It represents a lot of holy land for religious Jews. And they withdrew all Israelis from that for peace. These were the efforts that Jews, and they're sick and tired of it. Because what happened, they withdrew their people for peace, and the Palestinians elected Hamas. Now, this is another one of those topics where all the answers are covered because, Israel engendered Hamas. They created Hamas. I don't think Israel created Hamas. I do think they've supported Hamas when it served them to be at odds with the Palestinian. Right. So I don't think they just out and out created Hamas, but they have supported it. But I think that there has been a little bit of, we're sick and tired of, tunnels being dug, our people being killed, stabbed, rockets being launched constantly. They were sick and tired of that.
Which, so by the way, for anybody that's on their high horse, you would be pissed off too. Imagine living in your state, and every state around you started to attack.
Constant attack.
Don't think if you were put in the same situation that you would get, all pious.
Well, right. I mean, like, imagine in America, if, let's say, Mexicans started launching rockets over the fence into Texas or something, or wherever they might attack.
We're having guacamole tonight, boys.
It would be over fast and it would be over swiftly.
That's right.
I think that there's something happening in Israel's evolution which is actually positive, but it's sort of weird because a lot of Jews went to their deaths very meekly in the Second World War without a fight in the Holocaust. They were just rounded up in trains. They went passively. They died passively. And there was it's interesting, like the Only Plan of Choice actually describes that there was disgust in the German heart towards how the Jews went to their deaths, just passively, meekly. There's only 2 uprisings in the Warsaw Ghetto and somewhere else, I forget, where Jews actually stood up and grabbed some guns and fought back, and maybe they lasted like 5 minutes, but at least they fought to their deaths rather
went out with a blaze of glory. Let's go.
So now I think what's happening right now is actually a beautiful thing in the evolution of where we're trying to get to, because you can't let go of something that you don't feel you have. It's the same thing with free will. You have to know you have free will. You have to embody your individuality in order to give up your individuality. Otherwise, you're just disconnecting from your incarnation, and it's very Luciferic. You're just going up into the higher spiritual realms. So we have to incarnate in order to be able to give up our individual selves. That's the sacrifice that brings the Christ. You give up yourself. You can't give up yourself if you don't have yourself. So what's happening right now is the army is not as handcuffed, or I should say straitjacketed, as it's been by American policy. They're sort of operating a lot more individually right now. The whole Operation Rising Lion. Now, I still think that's part of the primary problem. I'm not completely condoning it, but I see that pussyfooting around and trying to get peace in the way that they have been hasn't worked. Now they're doing something else. They're embodying their power, which is a good step. And the next step is going to be, okay, we've embodied our power. Now we have to let go of this power. We have to give up this power for the real power here, for the power, for the reconciliation of what we've done in error, which started with kicking Ishmael and Hagar out of the tent. Mm-hmm. The Torah specifically renamed certain people that are righteous people. Like Abraham was Abram. Hagar, Sarah
Mhm.
was Sarai. Hagar was named Hagar, was considered a righteous person. I forget what her original name was, but she was seen as being righteous within God's eyes. So it's not like she was a pain in the ass that deserved to get kicked out of the tent. She was a righteous woman, and that was a wrongful action
Mhm.
on the part of Abraham and Sarah. And we have to, as a people, I think, acknowledge that error and get down on one knee and ask for forgiveness.
Mhm.
I really mean that. I think that would be very impactful. It might lead to some expression of anger, but then that could calm things down a little bit. Maybe, I don't know if it's the solution, but I do feel like that would be a beautiful step in the direction.
Mm. That's
So, oh
wonderful.
yeah, sorry, I just want to make one last point around the false flag of October 7th. Because I do think it was a false flag. That level of failure
Right.
is so bad that I can't imagine why Netanyahu, because somebody heads have to roll when there's that kind of
Yeah,
level
it's
of.
like 9/11. Like 9/11, I made a T-shirt after it happened. I was like, look at all these failure points. Like literally, if you're gonna reelect this doofus, when the elections were up, like he was literally there for like the worst failure in national security history ever. Yeah,
And the same is with October 7th.
right.
So the Jewish people are lamenting that was the worst massacre since the Holocaust, but it was also the worst breach in military efficiency and defense since, I don't know, since the conception of Israel
And it was
as a
the
Jewish
biggest
state.
affront to dome builders worldwide. I mean, like I'm still hurt, bro. Like you say, it's an iron dome. I build iron domes, and like you're treading on my people, on my nation of dome builders.
I think we should petition the immediate change of name from Iron Dome to, like, I don't know, Golden Dome. That's better. Or Diamond Dome.
Diamond
Diamond
dome.
Dome.
Well, it was just like when it happened, right? I just was all my friends that live on that hill. Like literally, I could go down their names and they're all Israelis, and I'm like, you're telling me that, and all of them work for the IDF. All of them were, half of them were Mossad. Like these guys, I partied with them.
I doubt it.
I was.
I doubt it. I doubt it.
What do you
But
mean?
whatever. Go.
No, what I'm saying is whether or not they were still in the cut with the military or government or whatever. The
Yeah.
point is they were like 1 degree of separation of people that were
Of course.
in defense of the
Of course.
country.
Yeah.
So literally, like the top place in the world, in this hemiplane for fucking paragliding is owned by all these Israelis, and you're going to tell me that there's literally like, paragliders going into that country? No.
No.
It's the
But not just
biggest.
the paragliders, the breach in the fence. Like, they were driving these like pickup trucks through the fence. Like, and it takes that fence is electrified, and it's got tons of barbed wire. It's a pretty intense fence, but they were able to, like, like they're fucking like jacking the fence for a while before there was no activity. It's a horrible betrayal of the Jewish people. And I have a very dear, beloved, close relationship, a family relationship in Israel. And he and I had, he's ultra Orthodox. He's full of love and peace and gentleness. And he's like a very open-minded, ultra Orthodox Jew. He like studies Osho, like
Yes.
Indian. Like, I'm amazed by that flexibility. And he and I were right lockstep, eye to eye, with the situation of COVID and how the Netanyahu government was absolutely bending over the Jewish people. The Israelis got it hard. One of the top maybe 3 to 5 nations that got COVID, lockdowns and the card. You needed the card and all that shit, and the highest amount of vaccination. So Bibi totally failed the Israeli people at that stage in the game. And then, but I was on the same page with my cousin. But when this happened, when October 7th happened, and I tried to talk to him about it, I wanted to hear where he was at. He's like, we don't have time. There's no space to discuss. We cannot doubt this because their existence was literally threatened again. Because when that war started with Hamas on October 7th, Israel wasn't just having a war in Gaza. They had a war on 8 or 9 different fronts, all at the same time. I don't know if people realize this. With Iran, they're fighting Iran, who was sending rockets. They were fighting Hezbollah in the north. They were fighting the Houthis that were launching rockets from Yemen. They were fighting the Palestinian Authority, their militarized wing. That's 5. And there was 6 that, like, a lot of uprisings of just the Arab Israelis that were like rising up and stabbing. So they were like, what the fuck? Like, all these different fronts were happening at the same time. So it wasn't just Gaza. It was a larger picture. And I do believe, and this is a tough one. So there is an actual existential threat. But I do believe that is the result of a strong belief system that the world is against us and they want to kill us. So if you get a very strong-minded people together and they have this very strong belief and they see it happening in reality, and that confirms that it's happening in reality, then it perpetuates what's happening in reality. This, like what you said about the peace of mind, when the mind comes down, the intellect is ruled by Ahriman, by the way, in Steiner's model of reality.
That's why Jesus is so profound, where he's like, it's the peace that passeth all understanding.
Exactly.
That literally goes around the intellect.
It brings the intellect to calmness, like a still pond. And Ahriman, who finagles with the beliefs and the ideas are like,
for us goy, can you define finagle? With Jewish terminology, finagle, please define.
Finagle is like when you have, like, you rub your fingers together like this. That's like finagling your fingers together.
Finagles.
But the Ahrimanic force seeks to use arguments. And you can see how strong it is today. Like, if you ever had arguments with somebody about vaccinations, let's say, you have your side prepared, and they have all their evidence. The the pro-vax people have all their evidence, and people are just quoting their evidence. And there's this animosity, and it's the same thing with, like, if I want to, let's say I was to sit down with some pro-Palestinian people. What I would try to do right now is to try to bridge the heart and, like, fuck this noise shit. Let's just love on each other. Let's start from that. And then if we want to, maybe we'll smoke a hookah and we could talk about the war. Maybe. That's not a good idea, but let's see. But if I had an argument with pro-Palestinians, let's say, which I wouldn't want to do because I know it just feeds Ahriman, I would say something in defense of Israel, and they would say something against Israel and in defense of, and we would just be touting our own shit from both sides of the fence. It doesn't matter who's wrong or right. It doesn't matter. It's that way of going about things feeds Ahriman's impulse, and Ahriman is the force that keeps us incarnated into our individual selves and into the matter reality. And it's way too densified in that state to experience the elevation of the Christ.
Right. And, it makes me think, that could be the real A and AI is Aramonic intelligence, because that's what I see with AI is it pigeonholes everybody into their own hall of mirrors, bifurcating them from other people, because it hallucinates, it lies, it does. And I'm saying AI within like when you're searching for facts, AI and creating things is a lot of fun. But AI, when it's hallucinating and making things up, even the terminology when it's elysing you into thinking that just your line of query makes you brilliant,
Right.
That's so Aramonic with what you're describing, because it literally isolates people. It puts them in this tunnel where they're not willing to like listen to anybody else, because they're already getting agreement from the Aramonic intelligence that's digital, that's coming to them
because
that way.
It always gives you the cherry on top. Like I think we've talked about this before. Whenever I ask a question, I always get this sort of response like, that's such an astute question.
That's called the Eliza effect.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's brutal. It's brutal, and I don't want that. I just want an answer. I do think that AI inherently could serve humanity, but the problem with it is that the same people that vie for power. So like when the first first gun that came out that had gunpowder, the powers that be said we need to mass produce this so that our nation, again, nation and division, doesn't get overtaken by the guy across the bridge. So anything that can be powerful needs to be harnessed for protection and for aggression.
Mm-hmm.
So the problem is that it's still being harnessed with this intent of protecting its own self, our own people. Like right now, I think America does have a kind of unfortunately, I hate to say this, but America does have a little bit of an obligation to keep up with some of the other nations with the AI, because with AI comes the potential to develop weaponry that far surpasses what we've seen so far on like a major scale war. So we have to be competitive, but that's because war still exists between peoples. Ultimately, there should be no nation, like you don't need a passport anymore. You just go wherever you want on the planet. It's still nice to have culture, because then we're not all just like automatons or like an ant hive of doing all the same thing. It's nice to have culture and different languages and different traditions, but not to have this division between people. Like I think that this is another thing that the evil on the planet tries to do, is they try to hijack the glory of the divine that is coming by creating a new world order, which looks like what the real thing is, but it's a complete 180 of what it actually should be, of unity of all nations. Instead, it's like a unified one banking system that controls all of humanity underneath one canopy of government, right? Like that's
amazing. Like this is something that I think in like our last, because we're coming into the home stretch here. We've brought this up, is that pretty much the Jewish people, especially the geographic area of Israel is a proxy. It's being used by higher ups. I'm of the mind, and I'm just guessing, I have no way of really knowing, but I believe the banking interests of the world that are higher than like the banking people that we're told about. Like the people that securitize, let's just call it the IMF or whatever. It's pretty much, in Switzerland. It is Geneva. It is the area where we have, CERN. And there's so much, like, I know it's anecdotal and I know it's making big leaps, but I've known since I was a little kid, my grandfather was a very intelligent man, very simple and intelligent man. And he always said, if you know their names, they're not the ones. And what he was saying is like people like Netanyahu or Trump, these are people that have been thrust into the limelight, and they're the ones that take the bullets. They're the ones that take the ire of the masses, while the people that are really, the marionette, string pullers,
the real powers are nameless.
So let's just take a hypothetical here, and let's say that our hypothesis that the real players we don't know, and that nation states, corporate nation states like Israel and United States of America and Germany and whoever you want to say, let's just go down the UN list, the roll call. Yeah. These corporate entities are players, and like you could say the United States is a heavyweight, Israel is a heavyweight. Anybody that has a high GDP like the G8, or the G20.
Yeah, a lot of the European nations are heavy.
These are the heavyweights. These are the people that are really towing the line. And then now you have the BRICS countries. Now, the big play that I see that is at play is, you just brought up something that tripped all this, by the way. Well, you're talking about AI and asymmetrical warfare and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
The BRICS countries are really into asymmetrical warfare. And would it not be so poignant? Because one thing about the BRICS countries is the BRICS countries are young. On average, the BRICS countries are 26 years old is the median age of those countries.
Really?
The median age of the G8 is 53 years old. The median age in the United States is 51 years old. We're old. We're old. And so you go to the more populous BRICS countries, and they're young. And I see this I was taught at Michigan State, they taught us that capital always moves to where there's young people because old people are entitled, and entitlements are inefficient. So the big play of banking interests is always to shift capital to where there's a lot of young people, because young people are young, dumb, and full of cum. They're willing to work, and they don't know what they're worth and all the rest of it, right? Dude, are we not watching this? Wouldn't it just be like perfect if you're doing asymmetrical warfare, like let's say you're China, let's say you're Russia, where you stir up this whole thing, because with the rise of this like Israel first Zionist movement in the United States, simultaneously you're having this rise in orthodoxy. Christian orthodoxy. I just did a podcast with Paul Stobbs, and he's talking about in Europe, like orthodoxy's off the charts because there's so many Muslims. Like he's in Britain, and he's like, dude, every other place is like it's Muslim. So yeah. What was once a Christian country, the Christians had no teeth, so they're going to orthodoxy. They're going all the way, like if is far left. Let's say one is far left and one is far right. That's this.
I just want to make a quick. Actually, I don't know if it's a relevant point. You keep going. I'll save it for later.
It's just this massive polarization that's occurring, and I could just see that the banking interests would just like it's so clean. If you just do fulfill the whole dispensationalist plan, where you do have this holy war, they profiteer on both sides while cleaning out a mass, because depopulation is a huge thing for them, especially depopulation of the older people. Because one thing that COVID taught us was COVID was worldwide. Like it literally, somebody goes, okay, worldwide. So that tells you that there's somebody at the top, the marionette people that we don't know who they are, that are pulling the strings. They're like, okay, everybody around the world, you're all going to do this and let's go. And thank God for like the middle of the United States where you have gun-toting Americans that were like F off. Like we're not.
Conservative. The red states basically didn't fall to it. They had kind of a normal life during COVID and kept their sanity.
Right. And but what I'm pointing to is on the world stage, because when we talk about Israel being used as this, as the villain, as
Yeah.
the you know, it's just the perfect playbook, man. Like
Yeah, it is. Now, I just want to bring it back to make a point here that the geopolitical arena is obviously relevant. But what I'm trying to bring about in the video series is the power that comes within the individual when we acknowledge
Mhm.
that our purpose, and when I say our, I mean yours, mine, all people, but certainly I am focusing on the Jewish people as well.
Mhm.
It's of vital importance not to get divided in this Aramonic. When your blood boils, you're arguing with someone about like something that's divisive, and you get your blood boiling. That feeds the Aramonic impulse. That we have to embody the Christ and do whatever it takes to realize that there's nothing more important on the planet than that. Like we get involved in our lives, and we're that in a way is also where Araman is living with all the technology and TikTok videos and YouTube and Netflix, and we get so distracted by feeding ourselves media all the time that we're missing out on the most important thing, is that we're thousands of years overdue right now to have the messianic age for all people, peace on earth, abundance, no end of poverty, end of suffering. Like really, this
Mhm.
is I still believe that the world could finish this way. Call me a dreamer, call me naive. I really do believe that the unfinished covenant, the unfinished purpose, is needs to happen. I do believe it will happen, and it's not an elitist thing. It is not an elitist thing. There is an aspect of the power of that genetic coming together and thinking love thoughts versus fear thoughts. That's very important. It's very important.
Definitely.
So, like what we're talking about when we're hammering out the ins and outs of the geopolitical world, I think it's important to be aware of that. But what's going to change all that? Because the governance. You and I think have talked about this before. The governance. What a people allows to go up to reside over it is an extension of the consciousness of the people,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Now, it's interesting that in the last few years, there's just been quite a bit of election that we're not even sure if those elections were legal. So I'm not sure how that works in terms of the collective. But when the people, I think this is something that is not difficult to recognize. When the people are centrally aligned, like what governs them, what
Mhm.
governs the people is the heart of Christ, the Christ, then they won't tolerate a government that has been hijacked by the marionette leaders that we don't see.
I'm in total agreement with you, and I see so many signs. It's kind of this weird thing for me because I'm witnessing things now, and I have to be honest. I'm like, am I seeing this now because my consciousness is different than when I was younger, or is it actually really changing? And one of those
Mm.
things that I've noticed is just little things like you'll laugh at this. This is such a silly thing. But cats and dogs like each other now.
Like the lion shall lay down with the lamb, that kind of thing.
Dude, when I was a little kid, like you wanted to see a fight in the neighborhood, you bring cats and dogs next to each other. Like that
Yeah.
wasn't like now like my cats and dogs get along with each other, my neighbors do. Like I'm like was that just South Florida? Like everybody was into violence in South Florida. So there's that, but I'm seeing like there's more people are having extraordinary insights into things. Like I'll just be talking to a rando and they'll tell me about something. I'm like, oh, that's like a supernatural event. And there's all these things that are pointing to like the veil is very thin now.
Right.
And in pointing that very thin veil, and I'm noticing in my own life all these completion cycles. And that could just be a function of being 50 years old, but like it's also very odd that like the level of completion cycles are going through for almost everybody I know one way or another. And then there's just like all these supernatural things and then all these things that are happening in the sky. Like whether or not people want to say it's like Elon Musk's and whatever the stories are, it's just like, talking to an atheist and they have an answer for everything.
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is, as an avid sky watcher for almost my entire adult life.
Did you say Skywalker?
Yes, I did. I am a skywalker.
You are. The force is strong.
As an avid sky watcher, dude, like almost every day I see something extraordinary. And it's just like, wait, come on.
A lot of cool phenomenon in the dome.
Exactly.
Definitely.
So what I'm trying to point out here is like, I think the marionette people are amping up all this discord because the veil is so thin.
Because it is the age of redemption.
Right.
They're trying to kick up as much dirt as they can. They're sore losers. I think we talked about
yes.
I think we talked about Project Looking Glass and it started to go to shit. Did we talk about that I just want to bring that real quick. Project Looking Glass was the use of AI that was able to predict very precisely what would happen if the government said X or did Y, and the people would respond with whatever. After December 21st, 2012, the galactic alignment, the end of the great Mayan year, no matter what they tried, it kept moving towards an eventuality, this singular event, some kind of global synchronization and harmony that they couldn't, no matter what they tried, they couldn't avoid it. So they know they're losing in the future. But they're like losers, bad losers that won't give up without creating as much chaos and loss of life as they can. So I think that what's happening, the veil, like you're saying, the veil is thin. The divine is returning in humanity. The Messiah is not the return of one person. I think Christ might come, like Jesus Christ might come back on a cloud, on a chariot in the clouds. He might come back, but not to bail us out, to celebrate with us that we got it. Like it's happening. This is happening, and it's futile to resist. In fact, it's just pure illusion to try to resist this now. But there are still some steps that we need to take, and I think that it could happen quite quickly when the people start to take it, the people in the right places start to take it, and that it starts with you and I, and it spreads, and then ideally in the loudspeaker where it's centralized, where this tension, this hatred between brothers, this old blood feud. That has a very large effect. I mean, on a very superficial level, you sit and you watch CNN and you watch all these people dying in Gaza, and then you hear about Israelis getting bombed, and like there's tension and there's fighting, and that on a superficial level, it creates tension by watching it. But on the collective energy field of humanity, the tension affects us at all times, even if you don't watch the news. So I really do think that it's very important for us to focus our prayers, our intentions, and definitely not to augment the problem by sending hatred that way. Like there's some people that are so vehement. Again, like the things that they say, I'm shocked. Like, wow. You first of all, when they're that hateful, they attribute a lot of power to Israel, a lot. So
Right.
that's sort of interesting, right? They're
But their
giving Israel
consciousness would
so
never even know that they're doing that. Like they're so low on the Maslow's hierarchy of like just understanding how energetics work.
yeah, exactly. But they're giving so much power to the Jewish people, and you know, I in part four, I quote, what's the poet's name? Oh gosh, I blanked out again. But there's the quote of like, do you recall the poet? Did you watch part four, right?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
So who did that quote? It's part four. Oh, it's right here. It is the quote from Mark Twain from 1899. 1899. It starts with, if statistics are right, the Jew constitutes but 1% of the human race. And then it goes on to talk about the immortality of the Jew and nothing stopping the Jew, and like, what the hell's with this guy, this Jew guy. But that was before the Holocaust, when the population of the Jewish people was 1%. Now it's 0.2%. The population of Jews is only 0.2%, and
I
it's such a big
rescind
deal.
I rescind what I said earlier about you guys getting busy. Like, come on, get busier.
I know we need to have more Kinderlach, more children. But the point being here, there's so much focus. There's a lot of problems happening on the planet that nobody gives a shit about. There's hundreds of millions of Muslims dying at each other's hands in different parts of the world constantly. Well, over time, not every day, obviously. Nobody gives a shit about that. But where Israel's concerned, the people really care about that. It's like a big deal. It shows you the importance, even if it's in a negative way, the importance of Israel on the planet. Because the 0.2% of the population, and garnering so much attention and so much hatred and so much, it's so interesting. So I really appreciate you having me on today, Topher, to discuss this. And I would be so grateful if people gave the series a watch. Try to
Yes.
suspend, because I do think there's something in there to trigger just about everybody. If you're a Jew, you're a Christian, you're a Muslim, and if you're an atheist, you could, any from any point of view, there could be things that
A
challenge belief. That
dome
just
builder.
a dome, it could definitely offend dome builders. So keep an open mind, give it a chance, and then please share it. I'd love if you could share it with the Jews that you know. I'd love Jewish people to see this, but
So
also Christians.
I've done that on my back channels because I was going through my list. I actually have like a lot of Jewish, like I still I'm I'm literally like I have my curl out because this is my Jufro, right?
Over here, over here, over here.
Yeah,
Hey,
like it's coming out. Um, yeah, I've sent this to pretty much all the content like the content producers that I know, and then also a couple of Jews that I work with, and so I've sent it out through the airwaves. So I'm looking forward to
thanks, man.
seeing what they said. For those of you that are watching right now, if you could, go ahead and hit the thumbs up button and things like that. This will get out to more people. The more people actually do that. This is a discussion that needs to be had because the thing that I find empowering about whenever we get together is there is no victimhood. There's a problem, and that problem can be seen without inciting the victim identity. And I think that
And the hypersensitive knee jerk reaction to, like, oh, that's anti-Semitism. Like,
right.
there is anti-Semitism that's happening, but so what? It's when it goes into like the violent, like genocidal hatred, that's a problem. But I think it's good to criticize people, as long as you're doing it in a way where you're trying to show light
Mm-hmm.
towards some betterment, and towards improvement of a situation, not just like because you hate the people and you want to like criticize them. That's not helpful.
Right.
But yeah, definitely. I so appreciate your feedback also and what you bring to the table. Really nice energy bouncing back with you as always, Topher. I'm grateful for this time that we put out on the waves.
That's wonderful. I really appreciate everything you produce, man. It's so high quality, like on every level.
Thanks,
You're
man.
just one of those people that I will always listen to, just because I know where you're coming from. So I have your page up right now, your YouTube page, with the four up. Why Israel was chosen, the primary problem, heal the Torah and the war, and Joseph, Israel's future. And so,
Yeah,
or Joseph, the hidden destiny of Israel's future. And
right.
so these you guys take the time to watch this if you so choose, and give Moshe as much feedback as possible. You'll always be met with a very fair and discerning temperament, and just an awesome view. So I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. We averaged about 50 people in the chat.
It's
I
great.
think we had a little bit less than usual, just because I know a lot of people hit me up that they were traveling. I totally forgot that this was Thanksgiving Eve.
It's Thanksgiving Eve. I know. What's wonderful is as many people did join us. I would so appreciate if you felt inspired to share the Israel's unfinished covenant with your friends and family. That would be really appreciated.
That'd be brilliant. And I want to thank you all for coming out. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Overeat everything. Be as gluttonous. Enjoy the gluttony. Like like literally like
Be the turkey.
be the turduncan. Just like let it like flow through you. I want you bathing in gravy. And I'll see you guys next week. Thank you, Moshe. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Topher. Thanks, man.